Hello, I'm Darren Magee and welcome to my Mental Health Information and Awareness channel. Now, today's topic, I've been asked to look at the character Negan, played by actor Jeffrey Dean Morgan from the Walking Dead television series. Specifically, two questions have been asked. One question is he a narcissist? Second question, does he have narcissistic personality disorder? Okay, so I'm going to try and answer both in today's video. Given that we can all behave narcissistically, we can all be selfish from time to time, I'm going to use the 9 criteria from the DSM-5 to look at whether or not he has Narcissistic Personality Disorder, or NPD. Now, out of the 9, he needs to meet at least 5, and he needs to meet them consistently, okay? Now, just to remind you, I'm in no position to diagnose anyone. I'm only really speculating based on the DSM-5 criteria, and besides, he's not real, okay? Now, just to warn you, this video contains spoilers, so you may want to watch the series before watching this. Now, given characters in television shows and in movies, they tend to have character arcs, so sometimes we will see inconsistencies in personality types. For example, we may see heroes become villains, we may see villains become heroes, and Negan is no different. As the series progresses, so does his arc. We see him become something more of an anti-hero, okay? And I must admit, he is one of my favourite characters in the series. In fact, I think he is my favourite character in the series, because let's be honest, he does get all the best lines. But for today, I'm going to talk about Negan as we're introduced to him, as we see him over the course of when he is in charge of his group known as the Saviours. We're going to draw on what little we know about his backstory to help inform us, and then we're going to look at what happens after he loses power. Now, when we first learn of Negan and when we're introduced to him, he seems to have a lot of characteristics and behaviours that would indicate narcissistic personality disorder. So let's go through the 9 criteria one at a time to see which ones that he meets. So criteria number 1, has a grandiose sense of self-importance. Now, things like exaggerating achievements, expects to be recognised as superior, whether or not actually completes any of the achievements that he brags about. Well, yes, Negan does have a sense of self-importance. He is Negan. He makes his followers identify themselves as Negan. He is something of a cult leader, the cult of Negan. He has his followers kneel in front of them, and he calls his group the Saviours, quite messianic, and he leads them as a dictator. He always puts himself first. Others have to obey and have to meet his demands, and they have to do it without question. Now, having said that, he does claim to have kept hundreds of people alive in that apocalyptic world, albeit he does it through ruthless means and by killing some of them even at some point. And he says this many times as the series progresses. He says that he recognizes people as a resource. Now, that suggests that he sees people as objects. Criteria number 2 is preoccupied with fantasies of power, brilliance, beauty, success, perfect love. Okay, well, with Negan we don't see fantasies as such because he does have power. He is a strong and ruthless leader. He is also a very effective strategist, and his followers are loyal. They obey without question. He is worshipped every bit as much as he is feared. He also has several wives, some of them which are actually wives of some of his followers who have agreed to marry him, even if it was to keep themselves or their husbands alive. I'm thinking the case of Dwight and Sherry. Criteria number 3, believe that they are special and can only be understood or should associate with other special people. Okay, well, yes, he certainly does believe he's special. He is Negan. Now, he has an inner circle, his generals, if you will, that he confides in, that he gives orders to. Okay, he doesn't really waste his time with, say, the foot soldiers of these little places. We only ever really see him talking to the community leaders like Rick. Criteria number 4, requires excessive admiration, and like I said, everyone has to identify themselves as Negan. He expects them to kneel before him. On many occasions he shows, or rather he tells people how superior he is to them, how dumb and stupid they are compared to him. Criteria number 5, he has a sense of entitlement, unreasonable expectations, okay, of other people, okay. He demands half of everything the communities that he owns has. He makes it clear to them that if half is too much, then they go make, steal, find, whatever, and it will even out sooner or later. He tells Rick and his group when he first meets them that they work for him. It is their way of life now. And when he turns up at their home of Alexandria, he takes all their weapons and he threatens to kill one of them, which he actually does kill one of them, because they're one weapon short. He sets off a frantic search for the missing pistol. Number 6 is exploitative and takes advantage of others just to achieve their own ends. Very much so. He wants everyone to work for him. He exploits and extorts from them. He calls them tributes. He rewards those that are loyal to him and who obey the rules, his rules, of course. And he punishes those who don't, either by killing them or burning half their face with a red-hot iron. Number 7, lacks empathy and is unwilling to identify with the needs of others. At times it seems like he does. He seems remorseless, especially when he is killing. For example, when he kills Abraham, he explains that there's a reason for it. Rick killed his people and they must be punished. When he kills Glenn, he acknowledges it must be hard on them and he says that he's sorry. However, he goes on to kill Glenn and show as if he's enjoying it. And when he turns up at Alexandria, he takes what little food they have, knowing that there's a shortage, he takes what little food they have just to make Rick's children spaghetti. However, he does show sadness and regret whenever Rick's son Carl dies. Criteria number 8 is often envious of others or believes that others are envious of them. Well, we don't really see so much of this, though he is very much a stickler for the rules. He makes everybody obey the rules. When he meets Rick's group for the first time, he makes it clear he does not accept disobedience. He doesn't seem to want anybody to have any kind of autonomy. Criteria number 9 is arrogant, has haughty behaviours and attitudes. Well, we do see a lot of inappropriate, morbid humour and sarcasm. He is violent and cruel, but he often says it is not without purpose. So using that criteria, I would say yes, he has narcissistic personality disorder. But now let's look at some of the other characteristics and inconsistencies, if you will. Because he reads people very well. He recognises Carl as Rick's son. He recognises that Rosita was in a relationship with Abraham when he killed him. He is a stickler for rules. He respects and follows them, albeit they're his own rules. So he isn't antisocial in that kind of sense. Very antisocial in the sense that he's brutally violent. He doesn't seem to be an outrageous liar. He doesn't seem to change his narrative from one moment to the next. He does apologise for killing 2 of Rick's friends, but he reminds them he is a man of his word. He means what he says. He will punish disobedience. So in that sense, he is consistent. He names his baseball bat Lucille. It is, if you will, it's an extension of his power. And we later learn that the bat's named after his late wife, his last connection to her. We learn in his backstory that he cheated on her. He was not a good husband. She gave him everything and he gave her nothing. So we see regret, we see guilt and we see remorse. Even though it took the end of the world and her death for him to perhaps acknowledge it. He rarely acts on impulse, except maybe for some of his one-liners, but his actions, even when he's being violent, they are measured and they're there for a reason. He tells Rick and his group how much work went into herding them into that location when he first met them, when they were trapped. He shows kindness, he shows respect for children. Even though the saviors have killed children, I'm kind of guessing he isn't aware of that. And in spite of his brutality, he does seem to have a regard for other people's safety. And later on, after the war with Rick's group, we see him in prison. We see him quite helpless, but we see him becoming more selfless. He helps young Judith with her maths problems, but not in a manipulative way. He sincerely apologises to Gabriel for his inappropriate humour when he learns of the man's concern for the missing Rosita. And when he kills Alpha from the Whisperers group, he could have got that power back that he had when he was leader of the Saviors, but he refuses and he helps Daryl. So I'm just wondering, perhaps he does have NPD. However, when he's in prison, perhaps what he has experienced, perhaps that time in prison has led to a traumatic growth. So they're my thoughts on Negan from The Walking Dead. I hope you like this video. If you have any comments or questions, please use the comment box below. I do like reading them and responding to them when I can. Please feel free to suggest any mental health related topics you'd like me to cover in future videos. Please consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching.